Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry calls for boosting armed insurgency in crisis-hit Syria. Kerry says insurgents battling the Syrian government should be provided with more help in order to accelerate a political transition in the Arab country. He made the comment one day before a meeting of the so-called Friends of Syria group in Italy. According to America's top diplomat, bolstering support for Syria's militants will be a key topic at the meeting. The White House has already signaled that it's considering a policy shift to supply the militants with, quote, non-lethal aid. The Syrian government has repeatedly accused Western states and their regional allies of stoking the unrest in the country. Well, to discuss that a bit further, we're now joined by Kevin Barrett, author and political expert, who's joining us now via Skype from Madison in Wisconsin. Sir, thanks a lot for joining us. Now, how significant is this statement now that the United States will be providing, quote-unquote, non-lethal aid to these insurgents?
Well, I'm not sure how significant it is, but I am sure how absurd it is when Senator Kerry, or I should say Secretary Kerry, tells us that the way to get a negotiated solution to the Syria crisis is to give more materiel to these rebels inside Syria and stoke the flames of civil war even more than they've already been stoked. I don't know what he's been smoking. I mean, throughout this crisis, the Western governments have been arming these rebel groups and mercenaries. There are mercenaries from Saudi Arabia and other places who've been sent into Syria. And this violence has actually been the main bar to a political solution. That, if these demonstrators in Syria had stuck with the Arab Spring plan of peaceful protests, the progress would have certainly been slow. And, like in Bahrain, where the progress has really been slow. But in Syria, the Western governments and other regional governments are very much open to supporting those kinds of protests. So it was, I think, a terrible mistake by Syrian opponents of the government when they decided to start a civil war, decided to go along with the plans of the Zionists and the Saudis and the Americans to try to destabilize Syria through violence. That was a terrible, terrible mistake. Certainly you can understand why some of them may have made that mistake in good faith, but it was a tragedy. And to hear Kerry come on and say, oh, we have to keep helping this war, keep fueling this war, and that is the way to get peace, is just rank nonsense. So is there any significance in terms of, does this mean that the U.S. is going to be directly helping the Syrian rebels any more than it has in the past, and the mercenaries from outside Syria, who are probably the real problem? I don't know. I kind of think that it's more political posturing. So often the way these guys think is that they believe that if they pressure the other side more, that somehow they will get a better deal at the negotiating table. So maybe that's what Kerry's war of words is really all about. He's just beating his breast and talking big with the hope that that will improve his side standing at the negotiating table, which is where the solution in Syria is going to have to come from, not from the battlefield in these cities where people are being slaughtered en masse by all sides, where these terrifically awful kinds of battles and catastrophes for the civilian population of Syria have been going on for so long. We need a political solution as fast as possible, and this kind of American posturing isn't helping.
All right, we'll have to leave there for now. That was Kevin Barrett, author and political expert, speaking to us live via Skype from Madison, Wisconsin. Sir, we do appreciate your insight.